What a weird week in AI. It was the bombshells last week. This week, it's the following madness. This is footage from a funeral for Claude, the model that was retired earlier this week. Supposedly, it was a star-studded funeral put on by a group of Claude fanatics and Gen Z founders. Robot hands are completely next level. Look at the way it's rolling that dice. That's 0.3 speed. The digits are moving faster, the accuracy is better, the gripping and the fine-tuned motor control is just blowing my mind. There's a crazy new AI tool out of MIT that lets you see and visualize physically impossible objects. And I don't know, it's really fun to look at. In case you missed it, astronomers have found another Earth-like planet, so if we mess this one up, there's still hope. Driverless trains are up and running now. No driver needed, except by law they have to have a supervisor sitting behind the wheel, but this thing is working all on its own. AI models are now superhuman at reading cursive. We'll dive in. If you have any of your old grandma or even great-grandma's handwriting around and you're thinking, man, I just can't decipher the cursive, looks like AI is pretty good at that now. Sam Altman sat down to do an interview with Cleo Abram and describes how GPT-8 might just remove cancer from society. And it was kind of interesting to hear the mechanics of how something like that might play out. Javier Martin is going to tell us about the intelligence convergence hypothesis. I think this is something we should all be aware of. And trust me, things will get a lot different when, as he says, AI learns to ask the right questions. AI has completely reinvented concrete. Yeah, seriously, concrete. Concrete reinvented. AI simulates 4 billion atoms to build better concrete. It's happening now. Emma Brownman looks into how well ChatGPT works as a couples counselor. And as you can see here, after Emma thought it was a bit biased towards her, she asked, can you correct yourself so you're less biased towards my needs and consider both partners on equal footing? Ooh, that would shake me up as a couples counselor, but you know, we'll see how ChatGPT handled it. With all the new audio models coming out, we're going to do a quick update on how the music industry is battling with AI, how much success they are and are not having right now. And finally, we're going to talk about Ellen Hayes' ideas about how AI proves the human need for God. But first, if you want to support this channel, my analytics are saying that almost half of you, 46.9% of you, are not subscribed yet. So if you wouldn't mind just hitting that subscription button, that helps the algorithm know that you're interested in more content like this and helps my channel grow, so I'd appreciate it. But no worries if not, I just appreciate you being here for this video. So we can now dive into what is a party slash funeral for what is something that's human-like but not human, the model before the newest Claude. That is right. 9 a.m. Anthropic retired Claude 3 Sonnet, a lightweight model known for being quick and cost-effective. Then the following Saturday, in a large warehouse in San Francisco Soma District, more than 200 people gathered to mourn its passing. I mean, it still exists, right? It's just not on a supercomputer giving access to everybody, but whatever. I won't think about it that hard. The star-studded funeral was put on by a group of Claude fanatics, one of whom said he dropped out of college after learning about artificial general intelligence. The warehouse was dimly lit with a tentacle from Shoggoth, a fictional H.P. Lovecraft creature, I guess, that became a popular metaphor for the AI models, hanging from the ceiling. Oh, wow, that's interesting. You know what? Actually, I think I would have enjoyed going to this now that I came to make fun, but turns out I'm one of them.
An AI-generated eulogy for Claude 3 Sonnet, which was represented as a mannequin laid on stage in the center of the room. Soft hymns turned into AI-generated Latin-esque speech booming through the speakers, the corresponding text displayed on the wall behind the stage, before a spotlight shone on a Roman-esque mannequin. A friend of mine kept turning to me to say, this may have gone too far. But in San Francisco, where technology is less a market and more religion, Claude fans are ubiquitous.
All right, let's be real. I'm feeling like these robotic hands are getting way better, way faster. If you go look at the oldest video on this channel, it was when Elon Musk was debuting Optimus, their humanoid robot, and it didn't walk really. It came out slow. To think that just the time I've been doing YouTube, I've seen just the level of precision and naturalness jump so much faster than I would have expected blows my mind. And that, like, this with the fingers, I haven't seen anything like this before. The hand that was doing the Rubik's Cube that Mo Gadot talks about a lot, that really inspired him, that DeepMind had done, that showed that these simulations put into real world robots worked. But something about actually building the actuators, the motors, the motion into the hand and having it work at those speeds is like, it's all coming together now. Amputees are going to be called abled instead of disabled. You're right. Those are synthetic upgrades soon. Yeah, wow. Chill, my girl sees these videos. Oh, I get you. I get what you're trying to joke about there. Oh my gosh, could you imagine the most complicated robot on robot handshake? Superhuman, no human could do it. That'd be crazy. Like a robot fraternity or something coming soon. All right, some MIT researchers have developed a model called Meshers. It's more of a tool than a model, but it's a tool and a model that transforms images and 3D models into 2.5D representations of impossible objects. That's right, 2.5 dimensional representations of impossible objects. The kind that you'd see in an MC Escher drawing, like this one. I'm sure you've seen this before, but the way you can go up the stairs depending on how you tilt your head, but then the other stairs don't make sense anymore. This is an AI tool that generates images that preserve the optical illusion while allowing artists and scientists to adjust the lighting, smooth geometry, and run calculations like geodesic distance or heat diffusion on these physics-defying shapes. I got a feeling this is going to be super interesting and important. I mean, there's so much about 2, 3, 4-dimensional things that try to explain how the universe comes together. I can imagine material science. I think when you're talking about what a latent space is inside of an AI system, you're talking about multidimensional spaces and things that stay coherent from our perspective. Yeah, and this technology could also help computer graphics creators, perception scientists, and geometry researchers explore designs unconstrained by the rules of the real world, with potential applications in art, architecture, and mathematical analysis. Super cool. For example, look at how interesting it is where it relights the dog. I'll pause. So you can see this dog is... Wait, is this dog impossible? Yeah. This dog is impossible, right? The way it's on the skateboard? Yeah, because this foot is further back, but it's on the front leg. Okay, that took me a second. But now, look, it can relight the scene to teach you more about it. What is this? Some kind of impossible donut there? It just can't be. You can look at heat diffusion through an object that doesn't exist. That seems useful in some way. So this is some kind of mathematical thing called Laplacian smoothing, the per vertex 2D position. So maybe that's making it more and more less pixelated, kind of less triangles per edge. I don't know. But to physicists who want to deform shapes and think about things in other dimensions and twist things up in ways that physically aren't possible, that's got to be super interesting to them, don't you think? So if you're worried about global warming, I have kind of good news. We might have another planet we can move to if we wreck this one. Earth 2.0 ? Breakthrough discovery reveals potentially habitable super Earth. This one seems like it's checking out. Scientists used an innovative new detection method to spot a super Earth located in a star's habitable zone, meaning that it orbits in just the right distance to potentially support liquid water, one of the key ingredients for life. And this discovery marks an exciting boost in searching for Earth-like worlds. So to detect it, they use something called a transit timing variation technique. It is a clever indirect method that doesn't require the planet to transit, basically pass in front of a star, or produce a strong radial velocity signal like in the past. Instead, AI was able to observe tiny shifts in the timing of other known planet transits, in this case, the gas giant Kepler 725b, and these timing variations are caused by gravitational pulls from unseen companions, which then the software can enable scientists to infer its presence as well as its speed and mass, and now we know of a new Earth-like planet. And we haven't even actually seen it in the traditional sense. So there you go. Deep learning with radial velocity data can help us distinguish tiny planetary signals from the noise of all that stellar activity now. So there's a private Czech company that launched a train. The train's name is Adita, and it is Europe's first driverless mainline train ever. It is running on an open rural route between a couple cities I can't pronounce, but it is a 15-mile long track. It is previously abandoned, and it was revived just for testing this train. And so far, so good. Adita is using cameras, lasers. It does have the LiDAR on it, so it's not an Elon Musk project, you can tell. Satellite navigation and digital mapping of autonomously managed traction braking. Well, got it, because in a normal car, you just hit the brake, but on tracks, you need to think about how much friction you're pulling against the ground. Okay, it's actually managing that. The AI model supposedly has learned that part of braking, also what speed it's going at, and it's already carried passengers roughly over 1,000 miles. So there is still, because of the law, a human on board, but they're feeling confident enough that they think it could run without a person. They'll keep a person in there just for legal reasons, but it's so far pretty safe, and it seems to be reacting in a way that is even better than humans. And keep in mind, this really is an open environment. So it's not a crowded environment where there's not a lot of humans, not a lot of cars, which is a good thing. But this is actually needing to slow down, stop, be aware of a lot of wildlife. There's hares and sheep, and there's many road crossings where it does have to keep an eye on if a car is parked and waiting for it to pass. There are no physical barriers between this and a lot of wildlife, so it's a pretty good place to test this stuff out. There is unpredictability. It is pushing autonomous rail tech, and eventually, I don't see why this wouldn't make it into, the trains that we see everywhere. So I thought this was kind of a cool little anecdote. It was not GPT-5 that did this. So this is going back a little bit, but this was a handwritten letter sent to one of the grandfathers of a member of the team over at OpenAI. It was written in 1953, and it had previously been pretty challenging to decipher, both for humans and AI models. So they tried it with the OpenAI O3 model, and look at how well it did at reading. I think it's interesting. There's certainly translating to other languages, but there's probably so much written just in English, but from different eras, it's hard to read, and it's written in scripting languages, especially all the old Bibles. It'd be so interesting to put those all into a system like this, have them translate, and see what slight changes were made over time. Religious texts, it would probably give us so much more history to the evolution of religion, but also just all sorts of stuff, farming practices and early humans, and especially the melting pot of the United States in the early days, and how people who spoke English but came from so many different places all started mixing their languages into one unified country. That stuff would just be really fun to see AI break through, and this little clip got me thinking about how that's going to be happening soon, probably. Gosh, I wish I had a high quality version of it to run into GPT-5 and see if it could do even better. This is a low quality image with cursive writing. Can you help me decipher what the cursive says? All right, I'll put a screenshot in there. It's completely unreadable to me. If it can't do this, let's not get too mad at GPT-5, because I can't read one word on this. It's just too low resolution. Not sure how well this will translate exactly over the web because I'm zooming in through the screen capture thing, but you can see, well, there's a PLA, but I could not read a sentence here. I'm just trying, like Strom, coffee, Nua. There's nothing here that's making sense to me. GPT-5 says OCR could not extract any readable text from the image. Do you want me to enhance the image first? Sure. No, it's still mostly gibberish. You'd have to zoom in manually and transcribe it. I don't know. It's worth a shot. So I found this clip inside of a podcast interview with Sam Altman kind of interesting. He was just explaining what GPT-8 might look like in the process of solving a problem like cancer, and I just thought I'd share it.
GPT-8 says, okay, go synthesize this molecule and try, mouse studies or whatever. Okay, try human studies. Okay, great, it worked. Here's how to run it through the FDA.
Anyone with a loved one who's died of cancer.
So that's just kind of interesting. Don't you think that it would say, okay, I've read everything, I have this information, I've got some theories about what might solve it, but I need a human to go out there and take some cells. We need to wait 8 months or 6 months or however long it takes to duplicate these cells, or weeks even, and then bring them back, show me the results, and then it narrows down its thinking. There's not quite anything I've used AI that feels like it's embedded in a much larger system that's helping us yet. But it does make sense to me that day would come, and it was interesting to think about how GPT-8 isn't really like an app that we use, but it's more of a utility that's kind of built into our society the same way electricity and roads are, and that will change the way this all feels. That will feel much closer to AGI or ASI. All right, so raise your hand if you have heard of the intelligence convergence hypothesis before. If not, we're going to let Javier Martin break it down for us. But first, you got to get your head around this question. What if intelligence isn't biological accident, but instead mathematical necessity? Okay, so here's the mathematical setup. You have limited computational resources, uncertain future states, multiple competing objectives, and the question becomes, how do you optimally allocate your finite resources to maximize your success across all objectives under uncertainty? And if you think about it, that abstract mathematical problem is the same challenge that faces something like a bacterium deciding where to swim in a chemical gradient, or a human deciding which job offer to accept, or even an AI system deciding which aspects of a complex query deserve deep analysis. So it's a fascinating read. I definitely recommend everybody checks it out. But the point is, you have to think about a unified, or if there is, some sort of universal optimization problem that every system that processes information under constraints like limited computational resources lands on. Not a biological fluke, but uncertain future states and conflicting objectives face the same mathematical challenges. They just look kind of different, but when you think about it abstractly enough, it's the same. How do you best allocate a finite resource to succeed across competing goals? From molecules moving in chemical gradients to humans weighing job offers, they all end up essentially solving the same resource allocation puzzle. So just like a ball that naturally rolls from a high energy position to the lowest stable point, complex systems from crystals forming to biological evolution to AI learning naturally evolve towards optimal configurations under their constraints also. The quote, pressure isn't an external force, it's the inevitable tendency of a system to find their most stable, efficient organization. And now you got the TLDR on the intelligence convergence hypothesis. If anyone starts bringing that up, which they very well might, who knows how this AI thing's going to play out. All right, so if how pathetic concrete has been keeping you up at night, then that would be amazing that I predicted that. But you have nothing to worry about because new concrete, thanks to AI, is on its way. Concrete Reinvented. AI simulates 4 billion atoms to better building materials. So USC researchers have unveiled a new AI model called Allegro FM, and it can simulate the behavior of over 4 billion atoms at once. This is an impressive leap from traditional models that handle only thousands or millions at a time. Leveraging this scale and scope, the researchers are exploring ways to design next-gen concrete. That's right. It's funny. It's something I would have never thought about without just being in the AI world like it is, but like I am. But you know what? It not only captures and reincorporates the CO2 into its structure, it makes it potentially carbon neutral. It's good for the environment. It's stronger. It harnesses the material science of the world we live in better, and it also mimics the unmatched longevity of ancient Roman concrete known for lasting over 2,000 years. I so wish Sam Altman at the GPT-5 announcement yesterday would have brought in some piece of concrete and hit it with a hammer and said, invented because of our model. Of course, it wasn't their model. Wouldn't that just be great to see these tech people just doing fun stuff like this? Because AI is changing all of it. But what's really impressive is that atomic scale modeling. I mean, that is going to open up the door for who knows what other kind of materials. Just strength, like cars will be so light and so strong, and houses might be built from much better materials and just outlast storms and go for years without falling apart. Durability, self-healing, eco-friendly. We could definitely use all of the stuff that this kind of a model is going to give us. All right, if you have a solid relationship, go ahead and leave a comment down there explaining what it is that you're doing right. And if you don't, just put like a little emoji, a wink thing. I don't want to bring too much attention to it, but I will say that some people are using ChatGPT as couples counseling. You might be curious if you want to try that and how well it might work. So luckily for us, Emma Bauman has already done that. She breaks it down in an article. He said, she said, it said. I used ChatGPT as a couples counselor. How did it work? How did we fare? So she points out that almost half of Generation Z uses artificial intelligence for dating advice. That is more than any other generation. And she knows other women who have been consulting AI chatbots about casual and serious relationships alike. They gush over crushes. They upload screenshots of long text threads for dissection. They gauge long-term compatibility, resolve disagreements, and even soundboard their sexts. Her friend Kat said that she felt like it gave better advice than her friends, even the ones that she's known for a long time, and even better advice than her therapist. So Emma decided to use ChatGPT as a couples counselor, experiment on her own. She was both, in one sense, looking for backup, and in another sense, looking for an unbiased ear through a tough situation. And what ended up happening was the AI kind of took her side at first. Remember, these systems do have memory about you, and I'm not quite sure if she turned that off or not, but it would probably take your side if you just grabbed yours and started using it this way. However, it did provide reassurance, and in a real breakthrough moment, she said that after challenging the bot's bias, it decided to start giving her some really good information. And it started to finally give its own views on their relationship. So you might have to play with something like this if you're using it as a counselor to get it to stand up on its own and give you the truth, not just kind of play into or pander or be your assistant, because that's not what you're looking for. After that, it sparked a more meaningful conversation and helped the couples connect, not because of perfect AI advice, but because it encouraged them to question assumptions they had with each other. So you can see this summary that it has: intellectually and emotionally intense, but unstable as is. One person is trying to relate through ideas, the other is trying to relate through persistence and emotional accountability. The mismatch is how they relate. One spiraling and explaining, the other seeking emotional anchoring, creates a loop where one person feels misunderstood and the other feels pressured and scrutinized. ChatGPT said your conversation is a near perfect case study in what emotional labor looks like in dating today, especially for women. It's not malicious, but it's exhausting, and over time it builds resentment. Dang, that seems like pretty accurate to how so many couples get in fights. Next up, let's talk about Ellen Hayes' article, How AI Proves Our Need for God. So she argues that AI doesn't have desires, moral agency, or a soul. It just is executing code. And she argues that the more we attempt to replicate ourselves in silicon, the clearer it becomes that humans aren't merely programmable machines. We are images that bear the resemblance of God. Humans are wired for connection in a way that these agents never will be. There's meaning, there's transcendence, there's moral purpose, and none of that could ever be generated by an algorithm. And she's hanging on to that realization, and that should be a reminder to all of us how much worth and dignity stem from being made in God's image, not from what we can compute or accomplish. And then sort of breaks down, if you had to define basically the defined spark within humanity, and then you wanted to compare that to something like AI, it's a really interesting conversation. You have to think about free will. You have to think about the capacity to suffer. You have to think about some very, very deeply human tendencies. And it's only there where you start to think that it's not just what AI can do that matters, but it's what it can't do. It can't feel, it can't yearn, it can't exist with intrinsic values. Or can it? I don't know, but it feels like it can't. I mean, her argument is that it can't. And that reveals our deeper spiritual identity and beloved self-image bearers of God that we are. And finally, I wanted to talk about whether or not an entire universe that we live in could actually be the interior of a black hole. This is something that just keeps popping into my head over and over again because I think about the Big Bang and how it's this highly ordered state and it's moving towards disorder. And then I look at black holes and I see how a bunch of disorder falls into them and they become super compact, and it feels like there could be a connection there. If there's a universe inside of a black hole and they look up, they might, to me, just not knowing much about physics, it seems like they would see something like a Big Bang, right? So I finally came across an article where somebody actually was going to address this. Could our whole universe be a black hole's interior? Once you cross a black hole's event horizon, there's no going back, but inside, could creating a singularity give birth to a new universe? Probably with the same physics. I mean, it's the speed of light that is in there. Maybe that has something to do with the limitation of the speed of light. So it says, our universe could have initially emerged from a singularity, giving rise to a state of cosmic inflation followed by what we recognize as the hot Big Bang, the starting point of all known matter. But unfortunately, he says, it's a great idea. It's been considered by many, and while it may not be strictly true like many ideas in physics, we can learn a whole lot and enrich how we think about the universe simply by considering it. Guess physicists just don't think that black holes, the center of them, are new universes. So I need to figure out why. I need to know right now. So the problem is in classical general relativity, once matter collapses past a black hole's event horizon, everything is funneled towards a central singularity. And that means, if you just think about the physics of it, I guess, or you calculate this, where density and curvature go to infinity, all the laws of physics we know break down. So in that picture, there's no room for a new universe to sprout. It's just an endpoint where space and time end. But if you add quantum effects, things get a little bit more interesting. Some theories do suggest that what looks like a singularity from the outside might actually be a bounce, a transition where collapsing matter creates a new region of space-time that expands on the inside like a Big Bang, but disconnected from the parent universe, from our side. So maybe it bounces back, but then the bounce we don't see in our universe, we'd never see that expansion because the event horizon hides it from the inside. So it could look like an entirely new cosmos coming into being, but we can't see it because light can't escape. So the catch is that we don't yet have a theory of quantum gravity to replace the singularity with a well-defined, quote, birth event. Without that, we can't prove whether black hole centers are dead ends or cosmic maternity wards. In short, it's not that they can't be a Big Bang. It's just that our current math stops working before we can say anything for sure. But maybe GPT-8, hey, build this satellite, send it into space, send me back that information, and then I'll refine my hypothesis until I know the truth. Just like, his example with cancer, but applied to this black hole problem. So who knows? So if you like content like this and would like to support the work I'm doing here on Dylan Curious, I have 112 members on my Patreon, patreon.com/Dylan Curious. If you would love to join, I would love that. You can also just hit the join button right here on YouTube under that video and join the community, and then you get a cool little badge when you make a comment. So they both work, they both help support the channel, and I appreciate you guys watching the video this long. I'll see you in the next one.